Quick update on the Epstein suicide, the autopsy. And we have Tucker Carlson tonight, and Laura Ingraham from the Ingraham Angle, both weighing in on the autopsy report. Tucker Carlson has Dr. Mark Siegel, who is Fox News, is chief medical correspondent, and he also has Judge Jeanine Pirro. And they pretty much say that this was not a suicide. They don't say it was not a suicide, but they strongly imply it. Mark Siegel actually says that in his experience as a doctor, what he saw from the breakage of the bones was that this was consistent with a strangulation and not a suicide. So you have that. And then you have Laura Ingraham, who she gives a report as to what's going on with the $577 million trust fund that Epstein set up. The lawsuits that are now hitting that trust fund, the fact that Epstein's lawyers are also disputing the autopsy report. And of course, Laura Ingraham, in the opening of her show, does something that's very, very interesting. She says, Epstein suicide, in air quotes. So I caught that. I have that in this video. Check out the video. I don't need to say much else. Just check it out. And please note that doubts about Epstein's suicide are going mainstream. This is Fox News, the #1 cable news station in the United States, and they're expressing doubts about the Epstein suicide narrative. So check it out. Also, don't forget, Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, pick up some magic mugs, help support the channel, PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribe Star. Links are in the description box down below. Subscribe, hit that like button. Take care.
Well, it's been more than a week since Jeffrey Epstein died, but the mystery around his demise continues to grow. New York City authorities ruled the death a suicide last week, even though several aspects of his autopsy clash with that interpretation. Dr. Mark Siegel is a Fox medical contributor, frequent guest on the show. We're happy to have him tonight. Doctor, what do you make of this ruling by New York medical authorities?
Well, Tucker, good evening. I don't have any reason to directly contest the ruling from the medical examiner's office, but I will say this. There are several irregularities attached to this. To start with, the pathologist who did the autopsy did not rule it a suicide a week before. She hadn't decided yet. She was waiting for more information to come in. Her boss ruled it a suicide a week later, despite the fact that there were three fractures in the neck. My inside sources have told me there was hemorrhaging in the neck. I've also heard that there were some bruising. So I'm wondering at the speed with which this was changed. A week is not that long a time to suddenly go from undecided to suicide. So what information did they have? I have to tell you, I'm waiting for the autopsy report to be released, which the public should know we still don't have. I want to be able to look at it myself. I want Joe Public out there to be able to look at it and make their own decisions. Just the cause of death alone is not enough. I want to know what the contributory evidence is. I want to understand how come two guards supposedly fell asleep and then fabricated documents. This is a really strange case, and the Attorney General is right to say that there were irregularities here, not to mention the way the psychiatric part of this was handled, which is an utter disgrace.
So very quickly, Dr. Siegel, is there a good reason why we still don't have that information?
No, there isn't a good reason. We should have it now. I mean, the cause of death is a final stamp, but we need to have this now. It should be released. They were supposedly waiting on the toxicology report, but then, don't give a final cause of death. We need this information released now. It needs to be looked at by everybody so we can draw our own conclusions on this. Again, this type of situation, and I'm sure the judge is going to say more about this, is more consistent with a strangling. I'm willing to accept it as a hanging, but I want to know more of the evidence.
Yes, more consistent with a strangling.
Much more consistent.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chuck.
Much more consistent. Remarkable. Another revelation in the Epstein case earlier today, just 2 days before his death, whatever its cause, Epstein signed his name to a new will. Judge Jeanine Pirro hosts, of course, Justice with Judge Jeanine every Saturday night right here on Fox. She's the author of the brand new book, Radicals, Resistance, and Revenge, and we are proud to have her on our show tonight. Judge, thanks a lot for coming on.
Good to see you, Tucker.
You've been involved personally in cases where there's a dispute over whether it was a murder or a suicide. Given your background, What do you make of this?
Well, first of all, I think what the medical examiner should have done was she should have listed the manner of death. Understand there are two differences. What actually caused the death, some kind of asphyxiation, but the manner of death can be a homicide, a suicide, or pending, undetermined. So there are 4 investigations going on right now. Her rush to judgment as to decide that this was a suicide makes no sense. We don't know why the cameras weren't working, why everybody was asleep, why they lied. The FBI, the DOJ, the Inspector General, Bureau of Prisons, everybody's doing an investigation. And where it's capable of being one of 2 ways, you've got to give me the additional dots that cause me to believe it's one way versus another. And by the way, Tucker, I have tried cases that were listed as suicides, and I've gotten a homicide conviction. So they weren't suicides, they were intentional murders. And secondly, the breaking of a hyoid bone. And I've tried strangulation cases. That's classic in a strangulation, not in a hanging. So there is a rush here. I don't know if it's to shut it down, but it makes no sense to me as a prosecutor.
Have you seen, finally, cases in your life where the medical examiner was influenced by political concerns or pressure?
Absolutely. Look, everybody's human. Everybody can be influenced, all right? There are very few people. Yeah. Look at Washington. Look at our government. We're finding out things we don't want to know, Tucker. So the same thing happens in the criminal justice system. But here's the saving grace. When we get all the facts, we can decide what happened. People say, oh, he tried to kill himself. He definitely committed suicide. That's not true, because he said that Nicholas Tartaglione, the cop in the cell originally, when they say he tried to kill himself, beat the hell out of him. I know that probably is true because I knew Nicholas Tartaglione. He was a cop when I was a DA in Westchester. Would it be like him to slap this guy around? Without a doubt. That's number one. And number two, the fact that he was very upbeat with his attorneys, said, I'll see you Sunday. All these facts need to be looked into to decide whether or not it is a homicide versus a suicide. And to just 1, 2, 3 before the toxicology is even back on the microscopic tissues makes no sense to me as a litigator who's tried homicide cases.
Very quickly, why are there so many people who are insistent that you be quiet and just accept the official version of things? Stop asking questions, stop being a conspiracy nut, and just believe. Why are people insisting on that?
Because they haven't done what I've done. If it's for me personally, I don't really care what people say. I did this for 30 years. I was a judge and I ran an office with 40,000 cases a year for 12 years. You figure it out. I went to every homicide. I oversaw every one of them. And I have seen medical examiners say it's a suicide. I look at the autopsy picture. The woman has tweezed her eyebrows. Her manicure is perfect. She's wrapping presents. It's not a suicide. She wasn't depressed. Her husband killed her, and I proved it.
The best. Judge Jeanine, great to see you tonight.
Thank you.
New details about the final days of Jeff Epstein raise even more questions about his suicide. New questions tonight in the mysterious death of Jeffrey Epstein and what he did just 2 days before he died. Now, Fox News chief breaking news correspondent Trace Gallagher is live in our West Coast newsroom with more. Trace.
And keep this in mind, Laura, he died, committed suicide on August 10th, and on August 8th, surprise, surprise, he signed his will. And it turns out Jeffrey Epstein was worth more than $577 million, including $56 million in cash, $200 million in real estate, and another $200 million in equities. Experts say for now, everything goes to a trust, though his trust is being sued by a multitude of his alleged victims, including 2 more women who filed suit today. Also today, the buck stopped at the acting director of the Bureau of Prisons, Hugh Hurwitz. Because of numerous prison breakdowns, mistakes, and violations involving Epstein's suicide, Attorney General Bill Barr has removed Hurwitz as acting director and demoted him to a different position. And Epstein's lawyers are vowing to push forward with their own independent investigation into his death. The lawyers don't accept the medical examiner's suicide ruling and say Epstein was imprisoned in medieval conditions. Quote, his safety was the responsibility of the MCC. It is indisputable that the authorities violated their own protocols, Finally, Fox News has learned a charter boat captain says in 2006 he took two 17-year-old girls parasailing. They were staying on Epstein's private island. Laura.
Wow. Thanks, Trace.